Hi everybody and welcome to Unit 5. We are getting close to the end of the term, so this week I'm not only going to talk to you a little bit about diversity, which is one of the topics we're covering, but I also want to go over a list of the questions and topics that will be presented to you in your final so that you can begin studying for that information. So one of the topics again this week that we're talking about is diversity. And it's extremely important for many, many reasons for organizations to become more aware of diversity and the trends in diversity. Of course, one of our jobs as leaders in an organization, especially if we're in HR, but really in any leadership position, is to value and embrace diversity for a lot of different reasons. The first is fairly obvious. We want to make sure we're avoiding lawsuits and doing what we need to do to hire people fairly based only on their ability to do a job. But in addition to that, studies have shown that companies that value diversity actually perform better monetarily because they have better ideas of what different types of customers want. Very few organizations cater to one type of culture, one color of people, one age of people, one gender of people. So it's very important for especially your R&D and marketing and sales and customer service departments to have a good grasp on diversity. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what are some of the differences that you might see in the workplace and some of the cognitive processes that people from different backgrounds might display. So patterns of thinking often differ systematically across borders. Cultural patterns and belief structures frequently influence what people see, think, and do. There is something in how people from different cultures attempt to make sense of reality that can easily interfere with their understanding of what's going on, as well as with any possible collaboration across cultures. Four of these cognitive processes are particularly noteworthy and ones that I would like for you to pay attention to. They're language and linguistic structures, selective perception, cognitive evaluation, and cultural logic. So I'd like to have you spend a little bit of extra time this week focusing on those because I think understanding those will help you to be better at actually embracing diversity. And then I wanted to just share a personal story with you. When I worked for the United States Marine Corps, I was hired in the United States, but I accepted a position to be the organizational director for Marine Corps Bases Japan. So I actually moved to Okinawa, Japan, and I took on that role, but I had all of the bases in both mainland and in Okinawa. And I spent a lot of time studying the Japanese culture and trying to understand how I would be the best manager I could be. But when I got there, I had a huge shock. First of all, the first shock was when I was visiting Iwakuni in mainland Japan, and then I would come back to Okinawa, my main base, the next week. There were differences between even my Japanese employees in Okinawa versus mainland. And you might wonder why that is, but I'd like for you to think of it this way. People in Hawaii are going to act differently than people in Texas, for instance. So I really didn't go in understanding that, and I made mistakes not taking into account that the dialect is different. One of the things I just asked you to take a look at is the different communication styles, but even their belief systems. You know, Okinawa is an island, so they're on island time. And Iwakuni is close to Tokyo, so they're almost operating 24/7. So even their perceptions on how to do work, when to get off work, and so forth were a big challenge. The other thing I didn't take into consideration is I had a lot of American employees as well. But because we were overseas, these American employees were hired from all over the country. So I had people from New York, Chicago, people from the South, and those cultures are different. And so not only was I walking into this organization where I had to learn to be a manager of Japanese employees, but I had to be a manager of American employees from across the country, and it was quite a challenge spending time learning how to communicate and being effective as a team. I'd love to tell you more about my experiences in Japan, and if anybody else has had any experiences overseas, please share those this week because I think it's a great tool for us to use. So now I'm just going to go over a list. I have a list of about 31 items that I would like for you to pay special attention to because these are the topics of the final exam questions, okay? So you're going to need to review corporate ethics, situational approaches, technical approaches, universal approaches, industrial approaches, and all leadership approaches, really. The garbage can model, maintaining consistent value and beliefs over time. How do you do that? 3 levels of organizational behavior, approaches to learning, hereditary perspective, personality perspective, environmental perspective, and change perspective. How would one measure emotional intelligence? All the different learning perspectives, internal versus external attribution, excuse me, self-fulfilling prophecy, 3 factors in contemporary leadership, authentic leadership, theories of motivation, the 4 dimensions of justice, organizational politics, influence, the different types of decision-making models, groups versus teams, what do they have in common, what's different, different types of coaching methods, conflict management, scanning methods, and then know a little bit about what's unique and different between Lewin's model and Kotter's model, okay? And then one other topic I just want to cover under diversity is, how are diversity and communication related? Effective communication requires understanding how individual diversity is associated with the communication process. So we need to understand not just how a group communicates, although I think that that's important. It can help you, give you some insight as to the best way to communicate, but also how that person implements their diversity or their differences in communication. So you need to really understand both, and that might be a test question, so pay attention to that one. The other thing I wanted to talk about was all of the tests is multiple choice, but some of it actually ask you to apply and diagnose. So it's not going to be 100% knowledge based. You will be given situations and asked what is the best situation here, or questions to that effect. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me or call me, and we will touch base on the discussion board. Again, please remember to share your stories on diversity this week. It's always a great topic. I feel students get really engaged, and it's very applicable to what it is we're doing in the workplace right now. Have a great week.